Republic Polytechnic is an institution of higher learning that offers a holistic, collaborative and active learning experience for all our diploma students. Our goal is to develop each individual to be a good problem solver, team player and a lifelong learner. In order to prepare our graduates for a highly complex and competitive world, we have adopted a problem-based learning approach that immerses students in a rigorous but supportive environment where they learn through authentic problems, engage in discussions, and reflect on their learning journey each day. This video will provide you with an overview of our problem-based learning approach and show a demonstration of our unique one-day, one-problem framework. We hope that through these examples, you will gain an insight into our educational philosophy and see how that translates into teaching and learning actions in the classroom. In our one-day, one-problem framework, a class of 25 students works collaboratively on one problem for the day. They meet their facilitator during 3 meetings and conduct their research during 2 study periods. In meeting 1, the facilitator introduces the problem for the day. In teams of 5, students explore the problem and decide on possible ways to scope and approach it. Students use the first study period to plan their collaborative work and conduct research on the problem. They use the internet or visit the library to gather more information. In meeting 2, the facilitator checks the students' progress by discussing the decisions they've made, any learning obstacles that have emerged, and the strategies they need to develop to find a viable solution to the problem. The next study period is for teams to consolidate their ideas and prepare a presentation to showcase their solution, approach, and process. In the third meeting, teams take turns to present and justify their solutions and approaches. This is also the time for peer critique evaluation and sharing of best ideas. The facilitator provides critical feedback to students about the quality of their arguments and their learning strategies. The day ends with the facilitator providing a summary of the learning issues and key ideas of the day. Students will complete their individual assessment tasks, which include writing a reflection journal and submitting a self and peer evaluation. Meet Stanley, who will share what it means to be a facilitator in RP. The problem for the day is also another critical part of the learning process. Here's an example of a problem that you see students respond to in this video. For this problem, the objectives are for students to understand how relationships can be made using mathematical models. They will also appreciate the use and limitations of such models. The objectives are not made known to the students at the start of the lesson, so that they have the opportunity to come up with learning issues and see the relevance and connections of ideas on their own. The problem is also accompanied by a worksheet, which consists of a set of scaffolds in the form of questions and scenarios. Additional resources are often provided for the students to explore. Meet our students who engage with problems daily and have to learn how to collaborate, critique, and solve problems.
In PBL, coming up with a solution is very challenging for me.
The problem motivates me to think and come up with a solution.
In secondary school, I tend to fall asleep, but in RP, classes are so engaging that I do not fall asleep.
It helps me learn by teaching others.
Teamwork helps me to explore more in my work.
We can be more creative and innovative in RP.
In the next few scenes, we'll demonstrate how these critical ingredients interact in the 3 meetings and 2 study periods. The first meeting is a time of discovery and curiosity as students examine their problem for the day. The facilitator encourages students to share their initial response to the problem by recalling prior knowledge or assumptions. He asks 3 critical questions to help students organize their thoughts. What do you know? What don't you know? What do you need to find out? This is the problem definition template, or the PDT. It helps students break down the problem into manageable parts so that they can identify learning issues in the problem and map out possible paths to approaching the problem. The meeting ends with students sharing possible hypotheses, solution paths, or resource links they would like to explore further.
Which of the things that you don't know, looking at this, which do you think is the most important that you
By this time, students should be confident enough to define the problem and go away with some ideas on how to solve it. The worksheet and resources provided in the problem package offer additional help. The first study period is for teams to investigate the problem further. They can search for resources online, respond to the worksheet questions, or visit the library. This is a time for self-directed learning, where teams will need to work on an action plan, assign responsibilities, and teach one another along the way.
We do experiments or surveys to check our assumptions.
Look for resources to understand things we don't know.
We teach and learn from each other.
Do the worksheet because the worksheet is very important.
We have our breakfast.
The facilitator meets the class again during the second meeting to check on the team's progress. This meeting allows him to find out more about any potential learning issues or obstacles that students might be facing so that strategies can be developed to help them. One way to run the second meeting is for the facilitator to spend some time with each team. In this way, the facilitator can collect more information about the team and on each of its members. Information like the ability to reason, cite examples, or simplify a difficult concept helps the facilitator gain a more thorough understanding of students' learning processes. In the second meeting, the facilitator tries to help students articulate their learning approaches and choices so that they can consider the steps they've taken in approaching the problem. They can also learn to evaluate how effective their strategy was.
Alright, so from the end of the first meeting, you said that you wanted to do some sampling, measuring of people's legs and their heights. So maybe you can tell me how that went?
Actually, we took sample from students in this class and also some in the other class, and we found out there is a relationship between male bone and female bone and the different races.
Okay, but given that in the problem statement it was a Chinese male whose bone was found, do you think that your sample was a good sample because you sampled everybody in class, male, female, and people from every race as well?
But even though we measured everyone, right, and it was not very accurate because it's not the problem statement once, we still can find a relationship.
Okay, given that you've seen the shortcomings of this, but you also see that there are potential to the data that you've collected, perhaps you could separate the data into different parts, male, female, separate them into the different races so that you can see how the relationship occurs within the different parts, and then you can try to make a conclusion and relate that back to the problem statement.
The facilitator helps students to be resourceful in the way they gather and evaluate new information. In this way, students can learn to be more self-directed and confident about making sense of technical or complex ideas.
Okay, so were there any resources that you found, maybe online or in a book or something that you could have used to help you to find this relationship between the height and the bone length?
So there was this website I found online. Yeah, it talks about how do we go about doing the measurements of the bones of human body, like the one given in problem statement, the femur, and also other parts of our bones. So this website was useful because they not just ask us to learn about the femur and the relationship to the height, but also other parts of the bones can be used to make an inference with the height and find out the relationship.
The use of analogies or scenarios can often help students make better sense of challenging concepts. The facilitator can also challenge assumptions and get students to clarify their reasoning.
Okay, so when we looked at question 3 of the worksheet, you saw that it took a certain number of bricks to build a pyramid. But if you double the number of bricks, would the height be increased in a similar way?
No, like what my other team member had said, because I feel that pyramid is built by the golden ratio, so it's 1.6 something, and it's like 3:2 is the ratio of the thing. So if you have to build like double times, then the ratio will be out of range. Then it will not be a pyramid, but an alien pyramid or whatsoever.
Good. So now that we saw a relationship between the number of bricks and the height of the pyramid, do you think that there is a can you relate this back to the problem statement where you looked at the length of the femur and the height of a person?
The facilitator ends the second meeting by summarizing some observations about students' learning strategies and highlighting important processes that aid the problem-solving process. This includes understanding team dynamics, strengths and limitations of individuals, how group decisions are made, and the quality of reasoning.
Okay, so to sum up, we looked at, some of us looked at surveys to try to find the relationship between the height and as well as a formula. Some of us looked at web resources. Some of us asked our friends about this. Some of us just made observations. But what else can we do? What other things can we do in order to see the relationship between the person's height as well as the formulas, and as well as I saw some of you using some math graphs. So what's the relationship between all these? That's what we need to think about for the presentation later. Alright?
At this stage, teams should have a clearer understanding of how to approach the problem, the resources they can tap on, and some strategies they can use. They will now plan their solution and arguments during the second study period. The second study period is for teams to review the learning strategies shared in Meeting 2 and to make decisions on how to consolidate their ideas and solutions into a presentation. Teams now start to pull together different ideas into a coherent whole. They might examine possible gaps or contradictions in their arguments or anticipate questions their peers might ask. The third meeting brings together the various team responses to the problem and allows for peer teaching, feedback and critical evaluation to take place. This meeting is a lively interaction of ideas where teams need to justify their solution approach to the class.
What's the link between forensic anthropology and the using of femur?
We know that forensic anthropology can examine human skeletal remains. And we also know that femur is a large bone and it represents human very well, so it can show the body proportions very well also.
The facilitator helps to role model for the class the kind of questions that promote peer learning, as well as ingredients that go into making a solid argument. Questions like "How did you come to this conclusion?" or "What real-life examples can you share?" are commonly asked to help everyone make better sense of the various presentations. The focus is not on content, but how students have understood the concepts in the problem. The third meeting ends with the facilitator sharing how an expert might approach the problem. Students then work on their self-assessment. They complete a quiz which helps them review the key learning points of the day. They complete their self and peer evaluation and write a reflection journal in our learning environment online, or LEO for short. The facilitator uses information collected over the day to assign a daily grade. This information includes the teamwork and the presentation and observation about each student's learning behaviors, the reflection journal entry, and self and peer evaluation. Written feedback is also given to each team and student. While the segments that you have seen is by no means exhaustive, it aims to give you a good overview of the kind of issues that both facilitators and students will encounter in RP's unique one day, one problem learning process. Remember that facilitating is a learning journey in itself. Use the strategies discussed during PBL Foundation workshops and the techniques employed by your certified peers as a way for you to make this a fruitful and enlightening journey for both your students and yourself. Happy facilitating!